Welcome to Unpopular Opinion. Greetings. My name is Grandmaster Tau Tau Haramanuba, Bantu Soul Society. I'm here with Mkulu Zamalek Giza.
Ashe
Ndawe.
Ndoshe.
Cool. Welcome, Mkulu.
Hey Mkulu, we welcome everybody in our show to be here, to be with us. Thanks for inviting me, Mkulu, so that we can continue to dissect our knowledge system and compare and have proper studies on it. Greetings to everybody at home and everybody who's watching. May you continue to listen and learn and investigate to the things that we are talking about. If you want to attend, you may attend the Bantu Society Soul, their lecture. You may come to attend my private lectures. Because we have private lectures, Mkulu, Tau Tau host them in the public aspect of it. Ashe.
Today we're going to talk about the Akashic records. The Akashic records cut across so many mystical, spiritual, and even religious societies. So let me take it from the top etymologically. Akashic come from the Akasha, which is a Sanskrit word for ether or spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So within the Indian cosmology, it stands on the topmost, the fifth element, above the earth, the air, the water, the fire, and then there's the ether or the asha, or the ether, or the spirit, or this space, even to the extent they say the soul. But this is supposed to be this space or this element that is holding together everything. So some they say they are cosmic library, cosmic consciousness, a knowledge, a library of a knowledge that is in the universe, that exists in anyone, that anyone can access it. So I take Mkulu.
My take in this, it's because the word Akasa, when we take it to Sanskrit, Akashic in the Indian system, Akasa means Aka, meaning the sky, and Sa means the sphere. So it is by saying atmosphere. So its origin is from the origin of saying the atmosphere, primevient elements and activities. We can take it to Johannes Kepler, who talks about the string theory. Within the atmosphere, we have 4 spheres: stratosphere, atmosphere, and the rest of others who can calculate them and make a research on that. And then with these 4 spheres, in the Indian system, they talk about abstracting telecommunication or frequencies from the atmosphere. And when they abstract that telecommunication or frequencies, it is from outside planet Earth. So that is why they deem that Akasa, or Akasa meaning the record database. That is about the whole entire movement here in planet Earth, beyond outside, but only here in planet Earth, the history, the events, and things that change planet Earth. The same things that we can get in the African tradition. And in an African tradition, they will never deem it as Akasa.
Of course.
They will deem it as Itonga or Ematongweni, Intozotongo, because they had to astro project. By projecting, they will have a moment where they get out of their space. Astro meaning using the etheric body, or sizoibizi isithunzi sabo ngegama lesintu. And then when they will come out from that, they will access another realm of other people who have passed away, who have already left their inner, as Mkulu Baba Credo Mucha will identify it, or Tina Sizoti, umina, uyena, or uuna, meaning the inner.
The inner, like in liina, leena, the self.
Yes. So that self will have other selves that exist that can come out. That other self is the etheric body, or what we can deem as astralic or astral body. So that is where one can be able to astral project or astro travel and explore phenomenons in these stratospheres and the laws and regulations that apply there. Like to just make it simple, Bamu Jaji, Baba Lubedi, they have a tradition of the rain queen and the rain ceremony. It is applied in that system and that understanding of the language. So the European got the Akasa from the Sanskrit, but it's the same thing that we practice here in Africa.
Yeah, because you see, when I come across all this type of exotic knowledge like Akashic, and then beyond their labeling, you got them Edgar Cayce, Madame Blavatsky, all these Europeans
Rudolf Einstein,
all of that. You look at now this the similarities, although I always say similarity don't mean sameness. You look at the similarities within the African cosmology, within the African cosmological science, that what did our ancestors identify this as? Because there is a school of thought that say everything out there was learned from us. Not necessarily everything, but most of the things. Like you have the likes of Dr. Joseph Benyo Kanan, who wrote the African origin of major world religions. And then they try to trace Judaism, Christianity, and Islam to Africa. Although I don't subscribe fully to those school of thought, I'm practically a West critic of that, that like those who say the Bible was taken from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Majority of those people tell you that the Bible is a copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They don't go to read the Egyptian Book of the Dead. You've identified the original, but you're still holding on to the copy. And a very highly falsified one for that matter, because anyone who's in that frame of mind, they have the view that the Bible is a poor imitation of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They tell you that the 10 Commandments of Moses was taken from the laws of Akhenaten, the 42 laws of Ma'at. Now they tell you that 10 was taken out of 42. Then you stick with 10 and you leave the 42. How does that work? And then they tell you that the wisdom of Solomon, Proverbs were taken from Pharaoh Amenhotep. And then still they are summarized in all of that. So I don't subscribe to that because in my view, it is keeping Black people into Abrahamic religions in the name of saying, oh, they are ours also, or they come from us. The concept of the Christ in Egypt, they will say Osiris is the first Christ, the first man to die, dismembered and put together and resurrect only to impregnate Isis. You understand? But now, then they use the KRST, the Karasat, that you find in Kemet, which is basically a mummified body. And then they tell you that the Christ come from the Karasat. But you say in Egypt, this man was not known as Jesus and was not born of Immaculate Conception. So there are a lot of similarities to a great extent, but they are not they are not same.
They're not the same.
Yeah.
Because the way you're saying it, like when you talk about the Karasat, I'm reminded of the word Hoabweswa or Gwambeswa.
Yeah.
And when we can translate that word and give it an abbreviation form, we'll say the KSR in Sesotho articulancy. And then in Sizulu, we can put the M rather than the R, meaning Buasa. So the same word, Gwambesa, it's to announce someone. When we bless them with the oil, the holy oils, and the herbals, and then we make them we go and bury them. We have a particular ceremony for them, and then we bury them. That same system is Ugwembesa. It's the same system that applies not only to someone who passed out to this world, but to even a king. Because the king must be emblamed and blessed, and then we have oil to bless the king and anoint the king. Apply to the ritual rite that will be done to a man's passage, a boy to a man, a woman, a girl to a woman. These rite of passage will have these particular ceremonies that we do. As same as the rite of passage of birth, where Sigbiza Ugwembeswa, Noma, some others, they will call it kwambulelwa, and the others will have the goat skin, where you'll have a goat skin and you emblem with it so that you can be able to breathe. Because our people use a eco-friendly system.
Yeah.
So they understood that when we cover a woman with a goat skin, she can able to breathe. That is why I forgot the name. Can you remind me the name that is used? But how yenze lento le inhlambululo, something like that. No, I forgot.
You're not talking about imbeleko.
Imbeleko. It's imbeleko. That's the name they use. Imbeleko. And that name, it means that you needed to be covered with a goat skin. And that goat skin, because a goat skin has eco-friendly. A goat can breathe with its skin. It can have air from itself when we study its autonomy. And then that same thing, it's applied by Abantu in order to embed a child to come out from the womb. In hospital, they use an oval, and nucleus oval for that, in order the child to be stuck in the glass and able to breathe. Because they cannot breathe our atmosphere, terrestrial sphere. So we need to accommodate their breath system and make them to adapt to this system we are in. People who have given birth, they know about that. So such things are part of karast, meaning to emblem or to announce. So everybody in our community is born anointed because we have that ritual. It is insisted and mandatory that when we give birth, we need to announce the child. And some people will even blame each other. Say, hey, you never opatalang malembele. Wena opatalang malembele uyapet. Because this is important. This is part of our law system. It's part of our regulations. It's part of our policies. But it gets disturbed now, Mkhulu, when it comes to the Akasa and all, because the Madam Blavatsky with their theosophy, they never understood the traditional practice and the spiritual intense forms that are practiced in Africa. And they view some of the things that we practice as Bantu, as barbaric and pagan and behind, without breaking it dialectically and scientifically what it means to the environment as far as we can call it eco system.
Yeah, because most of the practitioners of the Akashic discipline and what they mean to getting access to the Akashic records and to retrieve that Akasha consciousness, they are locating it within theosophy. Which is basically, now when you say theo, you're already talking about the Greek stuff, like theology. So now you're talking about the Hellenization. And when you say Sophia again, theosophy, these are all Greek terminologies, like theology. These are Greek terminologies. So then there's the element of the Hellenization of knowledge. Because the Greeks are the first civilized Europeans. The first European intellectuals came out of the Greeks. And before the Greek learned from the ancient Egyptians, like Pythagoras, Aristotle, Socrates, Xenophanes, before they came to Africa, there was no intellectual in Europe. Their first intellectuals are the student of our knowledge system. So what you call Greek philosophy is a stolen ancient Kemetic legacy or ancient African legacy. So when they bring it into their own world, they then Europeanize it. The first process of Europeanization began with the Greeks, the Hellenization. And then you get the Greco-Roman society, then it gets to be Romanized, like Christianity when it became what it is today. It was through the Roman Council of Nicaea and so forth. So from there, the Europeans, when they are not satisfied through the Greco-Roman processes of conscientizing them, they go to the East, India, because that is where the first Europeans, when they were coming out of the Caucasus Mountain, about 5,500 BC, who were known as they call themselves the Aryans. They were coming down the Ukraine steppes. So the first people they came across were the Harappans, those Indians, those dark Indians, then the Brahmas. And then they introduced their white racism into the system. That is why one of the most racist laws you can come across is the loss of
Indian system.
The Indian system,
It's
the law,
called the caste racist system.
The caste racist system, but there is the law of Manu. The laws of Manu are very, very racist, followed by the Talmud of the Jews and all of that, because they bring in their own racism into these spiritual spaces. That is why today, the likes of Sadhguru, Osho, they were all discovered by Europeans who are no more satisfied with their materialistic way of life. Osho, he made a name for himself out of initiating a whole bunch of hippies. And they incorporated a certain system of the hippies, like the free sex thing. You know, at one time there was no concept of marriage, but when they migrated to America, they started to create the sham marriages so that a lot of people can have citizenship,
a family structure,
and citizenship, and in order to stay in that place of the Rajneesh, that place that they established in America, Oregon, and all of that.
Oregano.
Yeah, so most of these Indian gurus, those who talk about the Akasha, who talk about meditation, who talk about yoga, they're discovered by Europeans because Europeans fundamentally lack this spiritual comprehension. And then when they come now to the source, like of all spiritual concepts, which is Africa, because if humanity come from Africa, then the spirituality originated in Africa. Before it became a universal concept, it was a continental concept, driven by continental consciousness. And like all the principles, that is why we're the only one with Ubuntu. So there are certain things they could learn, but they could not learn everything. They had to learn some of the things. So when I'm analyzing the Akashic records, juxtaposing it with the African consciousness, I find, but this thing we had it, but we never called it the Akasha. Hence we say that Akasha is a Sanskrit word. So we have it within us, like what you have just explained in one aspect of it. In the ancient Egyptian, when we were talking the other day, we were talking about the 9 components of the soul. One of the components of the soul is the astral body. So now, no, actually, I'm mixing that with the astral projection.
Astral projection.
Yeah, but it is the astral body. But then one of the things that you can bring it closer to the Akasha, it is the primordial waters of Nu, or the waters of Nyunyu, or the waters of Nun, where all consciousness came out, which is supposed to be a carbon soup or a carbon liquid, that everything that is in existence came out of that, which our people said, motho o tswa letlhakeng, motho o tswile ko metsing. You know, the first point of origin, ke ko metsing. Now, the human being is a microcosm of the macrocosmic universe. So the female body is a smaller version of the bigger body of the universe. So that's why we will call the earth Mother Earth. That is why even when we bury you in a position that you were in your mother's womb, because you are moving from one body to the next body, which is the earth, Mother Nature, mother tongue, and all of that, the mother concept. That is why even today, when they try to trace the common ancestors of everyone, they can do it through a placenta that is located in the body of a woman, what they've developed today to mitochondrial DNA. But again, they have to bring the Greco-Roman concept to it. They say mitochondrial Eve. So in order to constantly Europeanize knowledge that is not fundamentally European.
And constantly to create what we call the ideology of religion, going back to the stolen legacy. And to the Akashic. Because when we talk about the stolen legacy, it's the same story of different interaction, meaning the African people who are in Africa and then interacting with different spaces. And then how they interacted, there was exchange. And this particular exchange, it comes through communication, through the trade that we have. Some people will adapt cultural behaviors and understanding because they will see that, these particular people, since they adore and have a way to communicate with the sea, with communication with the sea, they will have a ritual, and that ritual will pass through and will be inherited by the Navis. The Navis will have a pass-through tradition that will do in their own community, and it became the Navi way of system. And the Navis will, when they will interact with others like the Vandals, the Viking, they will interact with them and give them the same tradition that will pass through as a navigating system. And that navigating system will be the way that will help them to go and vandalize and loot where they go and loot. But it will be passed through that system to those people they looted and splandered, and that system will continue. And it becomes a science of the day, or a system of navigating the sea. From the Navis who get that same system from the Bantu, who knew that we need to have a particular way of navigating the sea. But someone now who will study that, they will say, oh, Bantus have a way of worshipping the sea. Bantu have a way of embracing the sea because of the religious idea, the primate views of the European that were Christianized. Not saying Christian is bad, but its origin and its philosophies, concepts, and science are primate. They originate from the man who lacks superior intelligence. And that person always deem whatever they don't understand as God, as superior and high. Going back to the Acacia, that the Acacia was a system that is known in the Bantu, going Imbelego. Imbelego, in order to understand it, we needed to know the systems of the way we work. And those systems were passed through via Isanusi, Sangoma, Inyanga, all the practitioners in our community, like the practitioners in other communities who are called the shamanists, who are called the Nyosuasias, Nyasesi, the Nasua, to back to the word that we have is Sanusi, meaning this person carries the old knowledge system in order to understand why we practice Imbelego and where is it from. Where is it from? Someone will want database records. Where is it from? It's the database of the Akasa. In this modern time, we can call it Akashic, meaning they had to go to some particular place in the atmosphere and interact with other people who are already existing via the string theory. If we go and research what is a string theory, that explain that way they can be two worlds at the very same time, but the others cannot interact with that world because they are not vibrating or living in the vibrational principles that apply to the other world. This is a system of the Akasha, where Ingoma will go internally and go and commune nedlozi that is aligned netonga in order to access knowledge and information. That is why they can come to you and tell you your past, or they can tell you your present, or tell you your family lineage, because they can access a database that cannot be accessed by someone who doesn't know principle of transiting to that world. Going back to what Mkulu Baba Credo Muta will say, Sine Ngungwele Yeto, and known as a spiral, a snake that is in an infinite symbol. That snake that is in an infinite symbol, everybody loves that infinite symbol. They call it infinite because it communicates with the world and it communicates with the skies above. And it gives access and position on how to travel to those worlds. We can travel using these other bodies that we possess through the 9 components of the soul. We can use this body that we possess through the 125 spirits that we express. These systems, they are explained even in Kabbalah when they talk about 613 desires that a man needs to achieve, from the Bina to the Brahma to the Dena of the Kabbalah system, until you reach what we call the ascendancy or the Elohim, or the ones who know. These were the system taught in the Kabbalah because they took them. When we study the Habiru, known as the Hyksos, known as you say, the Aryan, these people learn the traditional system from people who exist, going back to the land of Umayyad, who were called Umya, Utuya. They were called Umayyad in the time of the Caliphate, in the time of the Sultan, because they need to transform their dynasty into different names. These same people were the children and the descendant of the Bantu, who carry the systems of communicating with the tongue. And it goes to the Kalia, the Hadi, the Pijima that you call in India, who carry the old system of the Kaliyanga, where that is why we have Kali, who's so angry and aggressive being against Brahma. Brahma introducing a new tradition of the triunion, Brahma, Krishna, and Shiva, all of them making the triunion of creation of the Indians, whereas Kali became the opponent, because this opponent carried the old secrets and practice and rituals and rites that were practiced by the Bantu. We get the name Kali being used, Gucci, Kali P. I'd like to pass it.
Yeah. Well, you see, there's a couple of things that I want to pick up on then that you mentioned in the process of just bring everything into context.
Yes.
Let's go back to the karast, the mummification. Because you see, we are tracing something from where it is to where it might possibly have originated and gone through different stages of interpretation. Because you see, knowledge is not conceptually neutral. So knowledge is a product of your environment. So if you take this thing from a warm tropical environment of Africa to the ice environment of Europe, it's going to start to have element of coldness. You'll start to tell us about cold case, cold-blooded murder, cold this, cold that, because now it is speaking to your environment. They say we are warm because we come from a warm continent, a very hot continent. So it speaks to also your warmness, your ubuntu, your ability to your personal and interpersonal relations. Now with the karasat, from Kemet, it is the Greco-Romans, they copy it and they call it the Christ, right? Which then most of these people who are into the African origin of world religion, the African origin of Judaism, the African origin of Christianity, the likes of Dr. Ben Yochanan, Sheikh Anta Diop, then will, even some white, like Casey Graves, who wrote 16 Crucified Saviors or Christianity Before Christ. And then he went on to collect different deities of other world, like Mithra, Zoroaster, Quetzalcoatl of Mexico, Osiris of Egypt, and say all of these are the earlier Christ. They all were born on the 25th of December. They were all born from a virgin mother. They all had 12 disciples. They all died and resurrected. They're all sons of a widow. They don't necessarily have some earthly father on record and so forth. So Casey Graves, Godfrey Higgins, who wrote Anacalypsis, they also talk about this African origin of these religions that are non-African. So for my point is, we always start from humanity began in Africa. We established that during our last conversation that about 150,000 years ago, human beings who are morphologically identical with the modern human beings or the modern men of today were found nowhere else on earth except by the regions of the Great Lakes region, by the foothills of the mountains of the moon, by the sources of the Nile. Now, this is then testified by the ancient Egyptians themselves, because the Europeans copied the Egyptian, but the Egyptians learned whatever they learned from the Bantu. Because the Egyptians, they say this thing that we come from the beginning of the Nile. We come from the foothills of the mountains of the moon. And that is the sources of their knowledge, that they are not only them as people, but also their knowledge began from the center of Africa and traveled through the first cultural highway, which is the Nile River, which is where they established the first civilization, which is called the Nile Valley High Culture. Now, from there, you find that from our part, let's do the Karasat. from our part. From our part is the rites we perform when we bury you. We say, hamba ube idlozi elihle. So the first process of the resurrection of your soul and identification of the eternity of the soul, that umuntu akafi. That is why arere ushwile, arere utlhokafetse. Ubani utlhokiwa ke badimo. So he's separated by the grave. This world and that world is separated by the grave. Kwa phesheya kwencwaba or kancane halibika. Abasuthu batla kancane halibika. So from that perspective is that he's going to the spirit world. So there has to be a proper rituals performed to guide his journey. And this is well documented in the Egyptian Book of the Dead or the Book of the Coming Forth by Day. The journey of the soul up until you reach to the
land of
judgment seat. Then your heart get weighed against the feather of Ma'at and all of that. So now what happened is the Bantu kept these knowledges in oral tradition, spoken, song, poetry, storytelling, dancing, and all of that orally. So ancient Egypt, what it did, it documented the spoken tradition of Africa in scrolls, in stones, and in 3 different languages. You know, the hieroglyphics, the demotic, and the hieratic, and actually 4, even the Meroitic. Because the Europeans managed to translate only 3 scripts, but they couldn't translate the 4th one, which is the Meroitic script. Now, how do we know that this ancient Egyptian knowledge is African, it's not European? Because this is a contested space. Egypt is the most sophisticated civilization of the ancient world. So the Europeans, they don't believe. After many years of demonizing us, you must remember that the logic of coloniality considered every non-European to be ontologically and epistemologically inferior, meaning that you are subhuman ontologically, and meaning that you are not so wise or you're unable to grasp a certain type of knowledge. That is why they say it became different type of Europeans: Kant, Hume, Karl Marx, Engels, even Levi-Brol. All of them, they had a different definition of us as subhuman. Levi-Brol actually said, we are a pre-logical people. So we don't have logics. We don't have something that you can offer as a Bantu philosophy. And then, of course, with these 3 schools of thought we're talking about, that there's other ones who were despondent by their own people. They tried to go out of Europe to find something in other communities to show that this Christ thing existed also in Africa. He was known as Mshanyana Sinkatani, Mupulisi wa batho mpeng ya Kgodomodo. He was known as Osiris and so forth. But with the Karasat concept, if you take it from the Karasat, which is the mummification in Egypt and the preparation of the body to move to the realm of the ancestors or to the spirit world or Taneta or Amenta, then you go now to the land of the Bantu, the land of the tribes, as Mkhulu Credo Mochel referred to them as the land of the tribes. Then there you're going to find the purity of these rituals in their pure sense, because they are cultural, they are not religiousized. So when you get them out there, they are either part of theosophy or theology or Greek metaphysics and all of those stuff. So they have changed a thing. So my thing is, when we are busy revealing this stuff to our people, we want them to hold on to the original version, not to say, okay, Umkhulu Tau Tau and Umkhulu Zamalek sat down and show the similarities, so therefore this Akashic thing is ours too. No, because then we must never lie to ourselves about history in order to have history. We have to just go into our own history in its purity, in its abstractness, in its strangeness. And the strangeness of it is because it was never made known to the world. So I was just taking from the Karasat and then coming again to the 613 thing of the Jews. Actually, this is where the 10 Commandments come from.
Yes.
All the laws from Genesis to Deuteronomy, they're 613. So using the biblical or the Jewish numerology is 6 plus 1, which is 7, plus 3, which is 10. So when they say the 10 Commandments, they don't talk about the 10th laws. They talk about the 10th commandment, not now, which is symbolized by the 10 fingers and the 10 toes. Because this is speaking to their own this thing that they've now have it on the men's clinic that the Freemasons are using, the thing of the body, the human body, that they're using it as a symbol of men's clinic. It just escaped my mind now. So now with that, they again, everything is in relation to the human body. So when they say this, the 10 Commandments, they talk about every utterances of God of Jehovah in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. When you all combine them together, there are 613 laws, which is with the numerology, Jewish numerology or Hebrew numerology, they become 6 plus 1, which is 7, plus 3, which is 10. Because they couldn't go beyond 10 in everything that they do. So that was also to just add on what you were saying.
Mukulu, when you say they couldn't go beyond 10, you just remind me, without going to the 613 and its desires and desires becoming a way to command someone if they never fail or misconduct themselves. But now going to the 10, Heketa, has become a name and an importance within the Greek. Heketa means complete. It's one of the gods that is known as the god of completement. That is why in the calculational system of Egypt, they use the decan. That is where we get the name Heketa. Decan in Latin and Heketa in Greek.
And which is where we get the
number 10.
Decade.
Yeah,
from
decade.
Decade number 10, which is decade is 10 years.
It's just number 10. So this number 10 has been used in Egypt to calculate the 10 stars that appear in the southern hemisphere. And then these 10 stars define the movement of the cosmology in the southern hemisphere. But now these same 10 stars, there's something they heard about. So they created a phenomenon of numerology that will kabbalistically add itself to number 10. As same as systems and normal systems that we have that traces itself to number 9. That the 3 times 3 will be the Trinity that exists that makes us to number 9. That 3 times 3, it's 9. And this same 9, we get it to 4 times 3, where we get 4 times 3, it becomes 16. And then that 16 becomes the
4 times 3,
4 times 3, it becomes 12. And that 12 becomes the number 3. The number 3 will go back to number 9. Pardon me for my mathematical calculation.
Okay. It's okay.
I was thinking about 4 times 4 making the 16.
16.
So in this case, this number 9 or this number 3 becomes a sequential system we can even found in a human DNA. Like example, our melanin consists of melatucious, melatochonians, and melanians. All those are 3 layers. That is why there's 3 layers of the melanin. Unomelanin, donzomelanin, and indomelanin. The unomelanin, that is where one lacks the melanin, what we can call iswafing language, and other names rather than to sound racist. But these are scientific identification of the skin pigment. It doesn't mean we classified people in our tradition through that racial pigment and make them to be segregated or caste system was set on that.
Hold it there with that symbol of yours. Let me put a disclaimer to this because it once put me into trouble in 2016. I went to Jamaica and then they had that picture of yours with the RUF Youth League, the Rastafari United Front Youth. And then everybody was like, why? Why is he doing this? It's an Illuminati sign. So I'm going to explain something about symbols, but I need you to explain that because this is your trademark. Everywhere people see your pictures, you're always going on like this. So I need you to explain and clarify because we must never leave our people to their own assumptions. There is so much microsensitivity out there that they're just sensitive to anything, So to clarify that, symbols resonate the energies that they represent, right? So like if you get the book called Signs and Symbols of Primordial Men by Albert Churchward, It's a collection of all symbols that were taken among the Batwa. There's no symbol that is practiced on earth that you don't find there. Even the Nazi swastika, it comes from even the Ankh. Among the Batwa, the Ankh is a symbol of a man who lives freely, a free man. A man who's not under burdens of anything, is among the Batwa. When you go among the Bakongo, in the Congo Dikenga, the Congo Cosmogram, it's a symbol of an upright man who stands between the earth and the heavens, or a symbol of a teacher in the society, or a symbol of Ngak. In their language, they say Waganga or Muganga. So I need you, Mkulu, to explain your symbol. Why you do it, and what is the significance of it?
Oh, as a Ngwana wa Sigi, I have to do the Sigi.
Ngwana
wa Sigi.
Ngwana wa Sigi.
Yeah, Sigi.
Sigi. Okay.
Yeah. Sigi. I cannot explain the Sigi because that's the secrecy. But now
it's a secret doctrine.
Yeah, it's a secret doctrine for initiate.
People will come when we're still busy with the order, initiating the people there. People will be coming and say, we want the secret doctrine of the Melchizedek order, or we want the secret doctrine of the order of Bakeasi. And I'm like, once we tell you the secret doctrine, then it's no more secret.
It's no more.
And therefore, there is no more need for the order to exist. If you consider that this order exists and possesses a secret doctrine. A secret doctrine is exactly that, secret.
Yes, thank you for speaking for me.
Yeah.
But to put it into a mainstream, so that I can make it everybody to have a, what we call a comprehensive understanding of the symbol. The symbol can be used in different forms. Symbols, they mean diverse meaning for diverse people and different cultures and how they perceive the world. So in a colonial culture that we have already have through colonization and even ourselves, normally where we are, when you feel fine, you use this symbol. It means monati, monato, pashasha, dishapudinto, everything is clear.
Marasta Kimberley, because this is the only explanation I gave in Jamaica. Rastas in Kimberley, when they greet, they say like, Ire, and then when they touch, they do 3 times for the Trinity, and then, but they go like, Ire, praise Jah. All of that.
Because of their Selassie, that is why they will use the Trinity.
Yeah.
But taking it back to the environment where I'm from, how this symbol has been used by diverse people in this environment. If they've done something fine, they're like, so this, it's a symbol that sees satisfaction.
Yeah.
But giving it a mainstream again of a understanding. Traditionally, we were told this symbol. And where I'm from, where I live, when you want a taxi, because taxis, they use symbol. Either you use the up or down. Where I'm from, you use this symbol.
Yeah.
Which means it has sentiment to me.
Yeah.
Like a bigger thing. I have value for it. I'm from this territory.
Yeah.
But now...
let me cut you a little there. While you're still talking about taxi symbols, there are 2 important Josie symbols that I love, or Gauteng symbol. There's that one of a taxi that takes people to KwaThulamdan. They go like this when they're stopping the taxi, And then there is that one, orange farm. Orange.
Yes. No, but these are our symbol. We show sentiment and we feel them. We so attached to them because we normally do them every day.
Yeah.
When someone wake up and go to work, or they want to go to a mall, they will use this same symbol. So they are attached to that same symbol. So this is a little mainstream thing, social thing that is happening so that someone else will understand before their religion.
Yeah.
And then we take the symbol to the traditional knowledge system before we can take it to the secret, because I cannot take it to the secret. But the traditional knowledge system, you have 9 months in your mother's womb. That is why it symbolizes the creation. When you are shaped in your mother's womb, you are shaped like this. The same way we will bury you. So it's symbolized in the old world without going to the detailed language of it and explaining the hand palm and its meaning for the initiate. It symbolizes creation or things when they're forming itself. the master creator. So the master creator who were grandmasters or the Sanusi, they all use these symbols in the old Egypt time before we were monetized, as you have said.
Yeah. No, you are making a very important point. When you say 9, with the Ethiopians, when you're not having makutoria, the prayer beads.
Yes.
That even the Catholics, they have the rosary, the Hare Krishnas, they have, those prayer beads. For them, they use this. You see, they say the fingers, you see, there are 4. They've got 3, each one have 3 potion. So they'll use this finger to say, each one represent each hour of the day. God forgive our sins every hour. God forgive our sins. God, Exio Maharana, Exio.
Yeah,
Maharana,
they'll use them
Exio,
as a prayer beat.
as a prayer beat.
A prayer system.
Even when they're traveling. So they use them with both fingers. So when you say this and you say 9 and you say birth and all of that, it all make perfect sense.
Yes, I know it will make perfect sense because you have already established an understanding of the palm and getting to be initiated within the Ethiopian Tawahedo Orthodox Church. And you have already become a Patawe. We were together when we were Patawes.
Yes.
But now you have already established the part where you learn the constructive stuff of the church and how it works. So the symbols they've taken from the Patawe have taken it from the traditional practitioners.
Yes. Yeah, because this is a part people don't understand. That you see, the past history of Ethiopia the history of Ethiopia for the past 3,000 years is Judeo-Christian. But before that, Ethiopia, before Queen of Sheba meets Solomon and bring in Judaism into Ethiopia, and then before Frumentius converted Ezana into Christianity and bring Ethiopia to Christianity, which covered 3,000 years period. Before that, Ethiopia practiced African spirituality.
Yes.
It also was one of the practitioners of African spirituality. So usually people, when they refer to the Ethiopian history, they're referring to the 3,000 years history, where they'll tell that Ethiopia was never colonized. Actually, Ethiopia was colonized for that past 3,000 years because the type of religion, God that they worshipped for the past 3,000 years is not indigenous to Africa. So one of the indigenous communities of Ethiopia, the Oromo, they worship a black god called Waka.
Waka Adua.
Yeah.
Waka Tayo.
Yeah.
Waka Omua.
Exactly. Waka. So they have sacred groves around Debre Zeit, now they've changed it to Bishofti. The last time I went to Ethiopia, I found that Debre Zeit, they call it Bishofti. So you find that there was the earlier concept, which names like Exabir come from there. God of the sea, God of war, and God of the earth. Meder, Baher, Maher. You see, Marem, those 3 gods. All of that, Amlak, is not a name coming out of Judeo-Christianity. It's a name, it's the same thing what Christianity did when it was introduced among the land of the Bantu. They have to use the old names like Mudimu and put it in the Bible to replace Jehovah with, or as another name of Jehovah.
It's
so also they did the same thing.
You said last, pardon me to interject you. Okay. I don't want to sound like last where I interject you. But it's the same thing you said when we talk about John Bede, our elder, that he translated African languages, and then translating these African languages never did justice to African languages, but only did justice to Christian views, Judaic views, and Islamic views. That is the same behavior we can get to some other people who can respect what we call Buddhism, Hinduism, but they cannot respect what we call African system. They degrade it. They don't give it scientific introspection and research. If it has qualitative research and that makes fact of the world, they become condescending to it, or use the word gaslighting. They gaslight the traditional knowledge system. And that has already created animosity in the community. The spirits themselves are fighting amongst themselves because the spirit of the Bantu, it's so practical. I will remind everybody, as Baba Credo Muta will say, I'm not only talking with the spirit. If it can smack you to away, or I can predict the weather and it happen accurately, or I can predict any catastrophe and it happened accurately, then you're not only dealing with the spirit, you are dealing with something that is so practical, but you are blind to it because of your own mainstream and your own privilege to choose where you want to view things and be in the state of complexity, whereas everything is getting destroyed.
Yeah, because you see, another thing where following up on the John Mbiti, the religious syncretism, actually the Hellenization of African spirituality or African spiritual traditions, was that if you read his book, towards the end, he said the mission is eventually to Christianize Africa. To evangelize Africa. The same as with Marcus Garvey, we were talking about last. And this is Marcus Garvey's month. Happy Marcus Garvey Day for those who are into Garveyism.
Every UNAI.
Yeah. But if you read the constitution of UNIA, the first one, Marcus Garvey was saying they want to come to Africa to Christianize the backward tribes of Africa. And that is why these characters, we have problem with them when it comes to the religion that they subscribe to. That all of that, he did not recognize. You don't find anywhere where he recognized African spirituality or African spiritual tradition. He never recognized that. So it's the same as these powerful people who mix up Pan-Africanism with Christianity, or Black nationalism with Christianity, or African nationalism with Christianity. So John Mbiti also, they had the same problem of, ultimately, because he was a theologian, he was a minister in the church.
Yes.
So he was a theologian through and through. So their thing was to try to find the African way to Africanize Christianity and bring the Africans into the Christian religion. Now, this thing doesn't work. Now, coming to what you were saying about research, we, from the Bantu Soul Society, we talk about researching the researchers, the antithesis of thesis, that these researches that we have, must remember they were subjects that were created to study us, like social anthropology. Social anthropology was designed to study us. Sociology was designed to study us. And they come up with names like we are polytheist, we are animist, we are pagan, we are barbarians, and we are all that. Now, at this age of information, where we're in a position, me and you and those who are like us, to sit down and look through this colonization and go to the roots, it is our responsibility to research the researchers. That we know that the researchers were biased. We know that the researchers were, they were not neutral. Like I was saying, that knowledge is not conceptually neutral. They were biased to their colonial mission. They are biased to their epistemological superiority claims that they are more superior. So they're looking into your knowledge and then define it in their own prejudiced way. So now it is our task. They say every generation have a mission to fulfill. Our mission and our generation is to reveal the truth, our own truth. And we are saying that as long as they don't stop telling lies about us, we will never stop telling the truth about us. And we'll never stop telling the truth about them too. That how did they come up? So when you say some of the things, you don't have to apologize and say, no, I don't want to sound racist. Black men can never be racist unless we understand what racism
is. You know, they've already held us a hostage where we say some of the words, they are censored, even in the applications that they were already created. They're not created by only one particular race. It's a majority of races who participated in this creation of these applications, softwares, tools, and everything that we have, to even architectural buildings. So it is necessary to always remember that asking for apology, it doesn't mean we surrender, but we understood that you have used rhetorics and they've used what we call political espionage as something to be against spiritual knowledge system. Whereas they know that African spiritual knowledge system, or what we can deem now African spirituality, doesn't have any political agenda, but to only acclaim its own existence and its past and how it can go on to the future.
That is true. And this is where the problem is. My last TikTok live I had, I encountered such type of problem. I was just talking about the lies of 1652, how Jan van Riebeeck came in here, his interaction with the Khoi or the San, and then the Xhosa, and then quickly send a message that whatever I'm saying is against community standard. And then the other time I was talking about against Christianity, and then I get that message, and I'm thinking, but this thing is made by the Chinese, and the Chinese are communists. They don't believe in Christ or in religion. Why are they so sensitive about religious issues and so forth? But then you get quickly to understand that what Sheikh Anta Diop said in the African origin of civilization, he said there are two types of people. Is the Africans and the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the rest, they look alike. They have straight hair. We are the only one with a woolen hair. The rest, whether they are Indians, whether they are Europeans, whether they are Asians, they are like that. And so it look like they are close in rank for one another. When the Chinese feel pain when you talk about the European, because somehow they're distant relative, or they are all ganging up against the Africans in their demonization. Because the Chinese are not less racist. The Asians are not less racist than the Europeans. They're all racist towards us. And it's been demonstrated in so many ways. There is a place there in Limpopo that the Arabs have a big piece of land that were given. They say the Venda people are not allowed there. There are places now, even in South Africa, like Koster in PE. Koster, where the Somalis are dominant and the Pakistan are dominant. The Xhosas are not allowed there. There are now places, Orania is not the only place. There are small Oranias of other non-Africans who are not
mushrooming Oranian.
Mushrooming small Orania.
Yes.
And the islands and of discrimination against our people. Now, this is the part that Africans, we need to understand. That is why when we speak of African spirituality, we speak of African spirit in singular. When we speak of Africans, we speak in singular. When we speak of African culture, we speak in singular because we are speaking to the unity of the Africans, irrespective of our persuasion. At the end of the day, we're Africans because white supremacy racism, it teaches a white man that even a white hobo, he feel he's superior than a black president or a black man with a PhD. So that is white supremacy racism. It's a power structure. It's a power thing.
But
even if you have a white Rasta.
Pardon me, Mkulu. They don't respect the structure that they themselves they've said. If a hobo will feel superior than a qualified man who have learned a lot, which means themselves they don't respect that structure. That is where we take it to astral projection, astral traveling. That as we had that system in order to understand the whole entire world, and we have Bantu cosmological culture that teaches a respect, a hierarchy system, a culture that we have, it teaches a hierarchy system. It respects a coordinate, a etiquette. It has a way to respect what is above, what is low, so that everything can flow in a way that is one accord. But the main problem now, it's not to say they've already pushed the race, because the caste system of the race, we can trace its origin. We can have stories of that, talking about that. I just wanted to divulge more on the African Bantu cosmological culture and divulge more on African spirituality, that is astro traveling and astro projecting, that how we do those things in our own community and how they relate. But we found ourselves again in a situation where we need to explain to the people who claim that they don't administrate the system, yet they administrate the system. To the people who claim that they are not privileged, yet they are privileged. That is why it is questionable when someone say they question systematic racism or they question the white supremacist privilege. These are studies made through proper, accurate research, without bigotry, without hatred to no one. But in order to understand the whole entire history, as the same way I've done it with the AI, to explain how AI, it is engineered to be socially biased, educational bias, and academical bias, that it doesn't even recognize intelligence from other indigenous pagan origin like us, the Bantus. So because of the colonial powers, because of the people who claim that, we don't inherit colonial privileges via the caste system of the race complexion, but we inherit these privileges through the hard work. Yet they don't recognize that there's some other people with different race who were ostracized, degraded, and taken away from their own inheritance who they can continue. I'm one of the people like that.
Okay.
So we need to recognize such a talk. It doesn't mean it needs to be racist or it needs to hate, but it needs to accept the factuality of history. History doesn't have good or evil, as same as knowledge. It doesn't have good or evil or right or wrong.
Okay. In conclusion, because we have run out of time now, for further reading, for people who like to know more about the racism, the works that have been done by people from our own race, they can get the ISIS papers by Dr. Chris Wilson. And they can get Urugu by Dr. Marimba Ani. Urugu is a name that she coined to refer to the Europeans and how they behave the way they behave, what inspires racism. You can get also The Iceman Inheritance by Anthony Broder, who's talking about the Ice Age influence into the cold behavior of the Europeans. And then they can also check the works of Dr. Amos Wilson, the falsification of the African consciousness, the miseducation of the African child, and the structures, the psychological operation of psychology. As he's advocate African psychology as opposed to European psychology, because European psychology is fundamentally racist. And then finally, on the Akashic record, there's one thing that came to my mind. It is from the Dagara cosmology in the healing wisdom of Africa. Also, I'm not going to delve into that, but I was talking about the two worlds you were mentioning that merge together, or how people perceive. I will refer those who are interested in reading to go and look for a book called The Healing Wisdom of Africa by Malidoma Some, Patrice Malidoma Some, who just transitioned last year. I think he just passed now into the realm of the ancestors. He wrote also the book of Spirit and Water. So, but one of his seminal book, the most famous one, is The Healing Wisdom of Africa. So, yeah, but we'll talk more about, we'll share more information about books on the monologue. Zamalek Giza, Mkulu.
Yes.
Doshin, we give thanks.
Yes.
We have to conclude because of we ran out of time. We're just having 2 minutes to wrap up. So I'm just going to give you 1 minute, like 60 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 60. And then I do 1 minute. Ditaba tsona di fele go fela nako di anega.
No
Moshato ko mogolo. Tswela pele.
What I can say, I have been there by my children, just to remind everybody the scroll that I have, our philosophy from our ancient elder that can help us to access the Akashic Astro Project and Astro Travel, and even understand the Bantu cosmological culture and system, and even its ceremonial rites. And then I will lead them to Gungi wa Tiongo. Gungi wa Tiongo, the grain well meat or the grain meat. But as we about to wrap it up, we need to remember to follow our customary tradition. In order to be part of the Sigi, or to pass through to the Sigi, or to be a god, you need to go to a person who have experience of that. And too much being said, just love yourself. Whether you are white or black or Indian or colored or anything, you need to love for yourself. This diversity that we have here in this planet, it's something that exists for the beauty of planet that can produce more beauty into our own progress.
All right. Thank you so much. Just in final wrapping of the Akashic records, bringing it back home, this is basically, Akasha is just a name given to a phenomena that exists in everyone and in everywhere. Everyone can access that. Those who manage to access them and focus on that in our community, they become Sanusi, they become Nyanga, they can become Abagcini Bomlandu, the custodian of the spiritual history and so forth. So it's something that every human being can tap into this. It's about your knowledge. It's about your origin. It's about the universe itself. It's an unwritten record. It's not books packed in a shelf or library. It's a cosmic consciousness that you can tap into it, and you don't have to refer to it as Akashic or Akasha. You can find a way to define this memory. It's a cosmic memory. It's remembering, is what we call intuition. or intuition of Ntu among Abantu. Is that Ntu intuition? But we will also touch more about the concept of Ntu in the next episode. We give thanks.